The movie opens with a text stating that a long time ago, it was believed a spirit of vengeance would take over the old people. This dark power would seize control of the tribe's weakest members and send them into a state of blind rage. The scene then cuts to an old man sitting in a wheelchair and listening to the weather forecast on the radio about a forthcoming heat wave across Germany. Not long after, a young nurse arrives to check on him, as the man lives alone with no family. But she discovers the main door is unlocked, and the wheelchair is also empty, which worries her. The nurse looks for him throughout the apartment, right when this happens.
Was ist mit ihm?
The old man repeatedly slams her head until she eventually dies. Afterward, the old man opens a window and begins screaming like an animal. In the next scene, we meet a family consisting of mother Ella, her son Noah, and daughter Laura. They are on their way to Ella's village, Solheim, to attend the wedding of her sister, Sanna. The children eagerly sing their family's favorite song, and look forward to seeing their grandpa and their dad, who is divorced from their mom. Elsewhere, we see Ella's ex-husband, Lucas, and his new girlfriend, Kim. They discuss attending the same wedding, and the possibility of seeing Ella there, but Kim assures Lucas that she won't be jealous. Shortly after, Ella and the kids arrive at her childhood home, where they are greeted by Sanna and her fiancé, Malik. It turns out they haven't seen each other for a long time. As they head inside, Noah reveals that there is a secret underground passage here that connects to another cabin nearby. He explains that, according to his grandfather, wealthy families used these tunnels around 100 years ago. Afterward, Ella asks Sanna about their father, Yak, and his whereabouts. Sanna responds that he is staying at the Solheim retirement home, since both of his daughters settled in the city. This surprises Ella, and we learn that her dad hasn't spoken to her since her divorce. The sisters then decide to check on him, and invite him to the wedding. Meanwhile, Laura is approached by her childhood friend, Alex, who invites her to hang out. Alex takes her to the sea, where they spend the afternoon boating and having fun. Elsewhere, Ella, along with Sanna and Noah, are heading to the retirement home, but they unexpectedly come across Ella's ex-husband Lucas. Noah is very excited to see his dad, but Ella becomes awkward while talking to him. Upon learning that they're heading to the retirement home, Lucas suggests they meet his girlfriend, Kim, who works there. The trio then continues driving, and Ella notices that the village has become more secluded since her departure. The area is now mostly populated by the elderly, as the younger generation has relocated to better towns and abandoned the elders. Soon enough, the trio reaches the retirement home, but notices that it's in poor condition, with food scattered across the floor. They begin looking for their father Yak, but come across many old people who stare at them oddly. They soon come across Kim, who greets them and shows them around. Ella questions her about the poor condition of the facility, so Kim responds that it is due to a lack of staff. She reveals how they have no choice but to restrain the old people to prevent them from running away or hurting themselves. Meanwhile, Noah comes across an old man who seems stronger than the others and makes a creepy gesture toward him. The kid follows him, and notices other elderly people, who also creepily stare at him. He soon comes across a room where he finds his grandfather Yak sitting in a wheelchair. Noah introduces himself, and invites him to his aunt's wedding tonight. But to his disappointment, Yak doesn't seem to recognize him and stays silent. Moments later, Ella and Sanna arrive, but he doesn't acknowledge them either. An emotional Ella then apologizes to her father, which finally causes him to shed tears. Elsewhere, we see Alex taking Laura to the woods, where he shows her a 2,000-year-old stone structure built in honor of the ghosts of their ancestors. It is meant to protect families who stay together, and curse anyone who disrespects or abandons their elders. At the foot of the stone, there's a carving of the letters E and L, which Ella and Lucas carved as teenagers. This sight makes Laura very emotional, as her parents are no longer together. That evening, we see Sanna and Malik getting married at the local church, and everyone seems delighted. But several elderly villagers appear and stare at them in an unsettling manner. Later, they return to the home for the celebration, and we notice that Yak is also there. During this, Lucas approaches Ella for a chat, He asks her if divorcing him to settle in the city and open her law firm was worth it. This question unnerves Ella, right when their kids arrive and take them away to dance. The four of them dance joyfully to their family song, while Kim watches them from a distance. Lucas senses her jealousy, so he approaches to comfort her. Meanwhile, at the retirement home, the old people gather in a room and are looking out the window, listening to the music from the wedding reception. A nurse then tells them to go back to sleep, and taunts them about how they aren't invited to the party. At the same time, another nurse hears strange noises coming from the basement, and heads there. However, she is horrified to find an old woman nibbling on an electric cable in the control room. And then, the lights suddenly cut off. Upstairs, an old woman pleads with the male nurse to let them stay longer and listen to the music. But he tries to forcefully put her to bed, and the enraged woman ends up biting him viciously. Seeing the woman being pushed, the seemingly strong old man moves forward to attack the nurse. The other oldies are also motivated, and they brutally stab him multiple times with glass shards, until he finally succumbs to his injuries. Soon, the nurse from the basement notices the commotion, and tries to call 911 for help, but the strong old man attacks her as well. He turns out to be the old people's leader, and when he finds Anna's wedding invitation card, he comes up with an idea. Meanwhile, at home, the celebration finally ends, and the guests begin leaving in the pouring rain. Lucas stares at Ella for a brief moment before leaving, which really annoys Kim. On the way home, she asks if he still loves his ex-wife, but he responds with a firm no. Elsewhere, the newlyweds head to a nearby cabin, which Malik has specially decorated. Sana is touched by the gesture, and the couple begins making love. But unbeknownst to them, the old people's leader arrives at the cabin, and silently walks inside. He then grabs a metal globe, and stuffs it in his sock, preparing to use it as a swinging weapon. In another scene, Kim and Lucas reach home, and notice a strange-looking old man in the distance. Kim recognizes him from the retirement home, and is confused by his presence. Suddenly, they hear a car alarm in the distance and, upon closer inspection, discover the village in utter chaos. On the other hand, the old leader launches an attack at Malik. He repeatedly bashes Malik's head, killing him on the spot. Sana runs away in horror, but the old man launches his weapon at her and makes her fall down the stairs. He then approaches her, and hauls her upstairs. Moments later, Ella wakes up to some strange noises, and decides to investigate what's going on. She walks through the house, and meets Laura, who reveals that a bunch of creepy old people are gathering outside in the darkness. Just then, the sound of a piano is heard from the next room. It turns out to be Yak, who is playing an ominous melody. This deeply unsettles Ella, and she feels like something bad is about to happen. In another scene, Kim and Lucas are seen driving through the village when they notice several cars stopped on the road. Lucas steps out, and is shocked to see dead people inside the vehicles. He tries to call the authorities, but all the lines are busy. Lucas then notices a gang of old folks brutally killing a young person, but one of them notices him and follows him. Luckily, he manages to drive away just in time. Back at the house, Ella hears a huge thump, followed by several knocks and bangs on the door. She nervously opens it, only to find an old man standing outside. He casually tears a page from the Bible he's holding, and gives it to her. Ella then reads a passage, which says, "Honor the old because there are many of them in the world, and someday you will be like them." In the meantime, Laura notices a weird old woman, who soon crawls away like an animal. This makes the mother and daughter realize that the situation is really serious. Ella orders Laura to go inside and lock herself, while she goes to check on Sana. Soon enough, Ella arrives at the newlyweds' cabin, which is completely quiet. She carefully heads to the bedroom, where she is horrified to see Sana and Malik lying lifeless together. And then all of a sudden, She notices a knife-wielding old woman in the room, and then, the old leader shockingly emerges. This compels the panicked Ella to leap through the window, before fleeing the cabin. When she returns home in tears, she is met by Kim and Lucas near the entrance. The old people are approaching, so the trio bangs on the door and Laura eventually lets them in. However, the situation takes a turn for the worse when they realize that Noah has gone missing. Ella desperately searches for him, but fails to find him, and Yak too. Worried, she then grabs a gun hidden in the house, and decides to go out to find her son. Lucas urges her not to go because he witnessed what the old men were doing, but Ella is determined to find her son. This leaves Lucas with no choice but to accompany her, despite Kim pleading with him to stay. Outside, Ella sees a lot of scary old people have gathered. Her father is one of them, so she demands to know where her son is. When Dad doesn't respond, an incensed Ella tackles him to the ground. In the meantime, several old people sneak inside the house, and Kim comes across the leader. She tells the leader how she has never hurt old people. She begs him not to hurt her, and directs him towards Laura instead. The old man surprisingly agrees and goes after the young girl. Laura's parents hear her screaming and rush toward the house. Soon, Lucas asks Kim where Laura is, but she responds that she's not her daughter, and it's his fault for leaving her alone. A worried Ella and Lucas then search the house for their daughter. They are attacked by a few old people on the way, but they manage to overpower them and move forward. The two eventually arrive in the kitchen, where Laura is being attacked by the old leader. The family gangs up and starts fighting him, but he proves to be very strong despite his age. After an intense struggle, Ella ends up hitting and knocking him unconscious. The three of them then hug each other in relief, while Kim watches on with jealousy. Following this, they bind the old leader with duct tape, and a desperate Lucas begs him to reveal where his son is. The man still doesn't answer, so Ella stabs him, and threatens to blow his brains out if he doesn't comply. This forces the man to speak for the first time, and he questions if she sees a person or a beast in him. He asks them to shoot him, saying he prefers to be killed than to live like an animal. At this moment, Noah arrives out of nowhere, and the family rushes to hug him. He reveals that his grandpa hid him in the attic so he wouldn't get hurt, before the grandpa joined the others. Suddenly, Noah begins to have an asthma attack, so the family rushes to give him his inhaler. Kim notices this touching moment, and feels very left out and alone. Meanwhile, outside the house, several old people are gathered, planning to launch an attack. The family thus decides to stay low for the night, and only leave at daylight tomorrow. Ella then gets up to go to the bathroom, and she's followed by Kim. Here the latter confesses that she's often heard Lucas say Ella's name in his sleep, something she's struggled to come to terms with. Kim also points out how Ella abandoned him, and it was she who took care of Lucas, and even Ella's dad. She then reveals that the old people never really caused any problems, until Ella showed up here. Hearing this, Ella tries to apologize to Kim. But the jealous woman unexpectedly knocks her out, and leaves her outside to be attacked by the barbarians. Soon after, Ella wakes up, and sees the old people are approaching, so she starts banging on the front door to be let in, which alerts her family. Kim tries to swallow the key, but Lucas snatches it, and opens the door. Unfortunately, the old people relentlessly try to enter, and while fending them off, Lucas is stabbed several times. Laura then grabs a fire extinguisher, and sprays the attackers, as an injured Lucas clings to the door. Meanwhile, Kim has had enough, and realizes that Lucas will never love her the way he loves his family. She thus decides to sacrifice herself and jumps out of the second-floor window. This distracts the old people, which gives Ella a chance to rush inside. Lucas watches in horror as the old people mercilessly slit Kim's throat and kill her. Next, the killers hurl themselves at the door like zombies, eventually smashing through, so the terrified family barricades themselves in a study room. However, Lucas, who had been badly wounded in the earlier attack, succumbs to his injuries. There's no time to grieve, as the old people have set fire to the door. Just as all hope appears to be lost, Laura recalls Noah's earlier mention of the tunnel that connects the house to a nearby cabin. With the clock ticking down, the family begins desperately searching for the hidden entrance, which turns out to be right beneath the piano. They manage to escape through the tunnel, but it doesn't take long for the crazy old people to come after them. When they find a hole, Ella puts both of her kids in it first. But sadly, when it is her turn, Ella is apprehended by the ruthless people, who begin to attack her. She thus bids a heartfelt goodbye to her kids, and urges them to move on without her. The kids are devastated, but they have no choice but to abandon their mother. In the next scene, the siblings finally arrive at the cabin, and it's already morning. Laura blocks the entrance with a huge cabinet to keep the attackers from getting in. The girl soon receives a signal on her phone, which buzzes with several news updates about angry old people. She then calls Alex, and he reveals that his parents are dead, and asks her to meet him at the coast so they can escape on his boat. Following this, the siblings leave the cabin, but notice their grandpa outside. Laura angrily raises a gun at him, but then, the old leader appears and attacks her. He immediately points a knife at her neck. Here Laura accepts her fate, and tearfully begins singing their family song, and Noah also joins his sister. Surprisingly, the song makes the old leader very emotional, and Yak also recalls the moments with his late daughter. The old leader struggles to hold onto the knife, and Yak takes advantage of the situation by shooting him in the head. Up next, Laura calmly takes the gun from Grandpa, and a worried Noah asks if he will hurt them. This prompts Yak to speak for the first time in the movie, and he says he would never hurt them, as he loves them too much. The three embrace each other in an emotional hug. In the final scene, they rush to the shore, where they see an old woman crying while holding her dead grandson. Alex is waiting for them on a boat, and is surprised to see Yak as well. He is hesitant at first, but eventually trusts the old man and lets him join them. The movie ends as the four of them ride away in the boat, watching on as a mob of old people gathers on the beach.